Pulling weeds. What is it about pulling weeds that makes you think? What is it about being down on your hands and knees, or even sitting right down on the ground, pulling weeds, that lets your mind take off? I've been pulling weeds all morning, and my mind has been mostly on my father. In my mind, he was the ultimate gardener. He could grow anything, and he did. He grew all the food for our family, vegetables and fruit. He loved gardening, maybe second to fishing, but it was a passion for him. It wasn't a hobby, it wasn't a pastime, it was a passion. And he did it so well. My parents lived in the city, and they had a little garden in the backyard where my mom grew things like lettuce and radish, things that you could just run out the door and pick quick. But my dad rented a huge garden space off of a farmer on the outskirts of the city. And that was his garden. That's where he grew the food for our family. Harvest started in July and didn't end till October. There wasn't a weed to be seen in his gardens. There were no sick plants. I don't ever recall failures, even in drought years like this. He would have never had a carrot bed that looked like this. And when I'm in this garden, he's in my head. He would have never allowed a patch of beets to look like this. And he would have never had weeds like this. My dad would have never understood filming your garden and putting it on the internet. He would have thought that was just the most ridiculous thing in the world. Why would people take precious time away from working in their garden to take pictures and film their garden to put on the internet for everybody to see? What kind of ridiculous thing is that? It's a garden. You want a garden? Garden. You want to watch a movie? Watch a movie. They would have never crossed in his mind. I remember one year, it was a year much like this, where plants looked like this from drought. And the garden that he had out on the outskirts of the city was, it actually was fairly close to a river. I don't know, maybe a quarter of a mile from the river. And everybody's gardens were dying. Plants were suffering. And he wasn't going to let that happen. So he went out and he bought a bunch of old lawnmowers and found long, long, long hoses, and he rigged up an irrigation system running from the river to his garden plot, which was not close to the river, that close anyway, using lawnmowers and hoses. I don't know how he did it, I can't remember. But he was the only one that had a garden that year. Everybody else's gardens pretty much dried up. That's the kind of gardener he was. He looked after his soil. He looked after his plants. He looked after his trees. He worried more about the health of the plants than he did about the product of the harvest. And he always had a massive harvest. He taught me so much about gardening. Not everything that I know. Some of it I have found out on my own by experimenting, gardening my way. And some of it I've actually learned on the internet and watching other people garden on YouTube. These are different times, and we are gardening in different ways than what my dad did. His way worked, no doubt about it. But I think this works too. I'm pretty sure he would have been pretty happy to see this tomato patch. Although he would have said, look at the leaves curling, they're hot, give them some water. But tomatoes were his favorite crop. So he would have liked to see how well my tomatoes are doing this year. But I would have had some advice on how to do it better, no doubt. My dad would never have understood my style of gardening. The potager idea where you grow vegetables, flowers, herbs, everything together, mixed up together in little fancy beds with fairies and wind chimes and lights and trellises and teepees and potted flowers. And glass ornaments. That would have been beyond his idea of gardening. But I'm quite sure he would have applauded results. And I know he would have loved these. Sweet peas are his favorite flower, and I grow them every year for him. So I guess you could say that weeds do have a purpose. I think they actually have a good purpose. They allow us to take the time to stop, get down on our knees or on our derrieres and pull handfuls of weeds at a time and think of whatever we want to think about. In my case, it's my dad. This is Dale from whatever the weather may be. Have a wonderful day, everyone. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.